Death of a Highland Healer. Hamish Macbeth Mystery. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Loughdoob Files. Tonight we venture north past the heather-covered mountains to the remote Highland village of Loughdoob, where the Atlantic winds carry salt and secrets in equal measure. It is a place where ancient superstitions still whisper in the glen, where modern medicine battles old wisdom, and where the line between healing and harming can be thin as Highland mist. We are speaking, of course, about the mystery of death of a Highland healer. Before we begin, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying what we're doing here. It helps keep the station stove burning. Tell us where you are and what time it is in the comments. I always enjoy seeing how far our little village circle extends. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft noise, and let us get started tonight. Chapter 1. The healer arrives. Police Constable Hamish Macbeth stood in the doorway of his station, watching the removal van lumber down the waterfront road. October had come to Loughdoob with its usual mix of golden afternoons and sudden squalls, and today was one of the golden ones. The loch sparkled like hammered pewter. His dog lugs pressed against his leg, whining softly. "Aye, boy, new neighbour." Hamish scratched behind the dog's ears. "The old Mackenzie cottage. Been empty since herself passed last winter." The van stopped outside the cottage 3 doors down from the police station. A woman emerged from a battered green Morris Minor that had been following it. Hamish studied her with a policeman's automatic assessment. Mid-40s, he judged. Long grey-streaked hair in a plait down her back. Flowing purple skirt, embroidered shawl, enough silver jewellery to stock a shop. She moved with the deliberate grace of someone who expected to be watched. New Age type, he thought. We get them sometimes. Looking for the real Scotland. The woman directed the movers with precise gestures. Boxes marked "fragile herbs" were carried in first, then furniture that looked hand-carved and older than Hamish himself. She caught him watching and raised a hand in greeting. He nodded back, non-committal. "Morning patrol, lugs," he announced to the dog. "Best show Blair I'm doing something." They ambled down the waterfront, Hamish's long legs eating up the ground despite his unhurried pace. Mrs. Wellington emerged from the general store, her tweed suit impeccable despite the morning's work. "Hamish, have you seen her? The new woman? The one moving into Mackenzie Cottage?" "Aye." Mrs. Wellington's mouth pursed like she'd bitten a lemon. "Morag Sinclair, she calls herself. Says she's a healer." The word dripped with disdain. "Traditional Highland medicine, if you please. As if we don't have a perfectly good doctor." "Oh, well, takes all sorts." "All sorts indeed." She's already put up a sign. "Highland healing, ancient wisdom for modern ailments." The cheek of it. Hamish glanced back at the cottage. Sure enough, a painted wooden sign hung by the door, decorated with Celtic knotwork and what looked like herbs. "Is it legal?" Mrs. Wellington demanded. "Can she just set up shop like that? If she's not claiming to be a medical doctor and no prescribing controlled substances, there's nothing illegal about it." Hamish kept his voice mild. "People have been using herbs since before there were doctors. Nonsense and superstition." Mrs. Wellington adjusted her handbag with military precision. "Mark my words, no good will come of this." She marched off. Hamish continued his patrol, which consisted mainly of buying the newspaper from Patel's and a packet of biscuits from the bakery. The village was already buzzing about the newcomer. In the bakery, Nessie and Jessie Curry held court. "She was in the Highlands before," Nessie said, voice low and thrilled. "The Highlands," Jessie echoed. "Had a practice in Dornoch." "Dornoch," Jessie confirmed. "Left under mysterious circumstances." "Very mysterious." Hamish selected his biscuits slowly, listening. The Curry sisters were better than any intelligence network. "Mrs. Daviot's already been to see her," Nessie whispered. "Poor Mrs. Daviot," Jessie sighed. "The cancer, you know. The doctors can't do anything more." "Desperate, she is." "Desperate," Jessie agreed. Hamish paid and left, thoughtful. Mrs. Daviett had been fighting cancer for 2 years. If she was turning to alternative medicine, she must be running out of hope. Back at the station, he fed Lugs and his wild cat Sonzi, then settled into his favourite chair with the newspaper. But concentration eluded him. Something about the healer's arrival sat uneasily in his mind. He'd learned to trust these instincts. The phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. "Police," he said, not bothering to give his name. "Hamish? It's Angela. Angela Brodie." The doctor's wife sounded upset. "What's wrong?" "It's this new woman, the healer. She's already been telling people not to trust modern medicine. Mrs. Daviett came to see my husband this morning, wanted to cancel her chemotherapy, said the healer could cure her with herbs and energy work." "What did the doctor say?" "What could he say? He can't force her to continue treatment. But Hamish, she'll die without it. She might die with it, but at least she has a chance." "I'll have a word with the healer," Hamish promised. "See what she's about. Be careful. These people can be very persuasive. They prey on the desperate." After hanging up, Hamish sat thinking. Interference already, and she's barely unpacked. The afternoon was wearing on when he finally walked to the Mackenzie cottage. The door stood open, releasing scents of sage and something earthier. He knocked on the doorframe. "Come in." The voice was Highland, but refined, educated. The cottage's front room had been transformed into what looked like an apothecary from another century. Shelves lined the walls, filled with glass jars of dried herbs, roots, and things Hamish couldn't identify. Crystals caught the light from the window. Books were everywhere. Morag Sinclair emerged from the back room, wiping her hands on an apron. Up close, she was handsome rather than pretty, with sharp grey eyes that seemed to catalogue everything about him in one glance. "Police Constable Macbeth. I wondered when you'd come. Just a friendly visit. Welcome to Loch. She smiled, showing good teeth. "How friendly?" "Oh, entirely friendly. Though I heard you've been advising people about their medical treatment." "I've been offering alternatives." She moved to a shelf, adjusting jars that didn't need adjusting. "People come to me when conventional medicine fails them, or when they can't afford it, or when they want to treat the whole person, not just symptoms. Mrs. Daviett came to me voluntarily. I told her nothing except the truth, that I might be able to help where others couldn't. Is hope illegal now, Constable?" "No, as long as it's honest hope." Her eyes flashed. "Are you questioning my honesty?" "I'm questioning nothing yet, just having a friendly word." She studied him for a long moment. "You're not what I expected from a village policeman." "Oh? What did you expect?" "Someone more rigid. You have an interesting aura." Here we go, Hamish thought. Auras and energy. "Very conflicted," she continued. "Purple and gold, but shot through with grey. A man at war with himself." She tilted her head. "You're in love with someone you can't have." Hamish kept his face carefully neutral, but something must have shown because she smiled. "I'm not psychic, Constable. Just observant. It's written all over you." "Well, I'll let you get back to your unpacking." He moved toward the door. "Enjoy Loch, Miss Sinclair. It's a peaceful place. We like to keep it that way." "Of course. Oh, Constable, you should try valerian tea. For the insomnia." He paused. "What makes you think I have insomnia?" "The shadows under your eyes, the way you hold tension in your shoulders. Valerian, or chamomile if you prefer something milder." Outside, Hamish took a deep breath of sea air. "She's sharp. Maybe too sharp." The Tommel Castle Hotel sat on a hill overlooking the village, a Victorian pile of turrets and bay windows. Hamish parked his battered Land Rover beside a gleaming BMW and checked his appearance in the mirror. His red hair stuck up despite his efforts to flatten it. "You're a fool, Hamish Macbeth. She doesn't care what your hair looks like." Priscilla was in the hotel office, going through accounts. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and pearls. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a style that probably took an hour to look effortless. Hamish. She looked up, smiled politely. The smile that meant nothing. What brings you here? Thought I'd check on the hotel. Any problems with the guests? Since yesterday? No, Hamish. No problems since yesterday. He felt heat rise in his face. She'd seen through his excuse immediately. Actually, he said, recovering, I wanted to ask about the harvest tealith. You're still organizing it? Something softened in her expression. Yes. Saturday night. The band's confirmed, and Mrs. Wellington is handling the food. She paused. Will you come? It's my job to be there. Keep the peace. Of course. Your job. The walls were back up. Was there anything else? Tell her she looks beautiful. Tell her you think about her every night. Tell her. The new healer in the village, Morag Sinclair. Has she approached the hotel? Priscilla frowned. She called yesterday. Wanted to know if we'd be interested in offering healing weekends. Spa treatments with traditional Highland medicine. I told her I'd think about it. Will you? The guests might like it. We're always looking for authentic Highland experiences. She shuffled papers, not looking at him. Is she trouble? I don't know yet. You think she will be. I can see it on your face. You can always read me, he thought. Everyone else thinks I'm lazy and slow, but you see everything. Hamish. Her voice was gentler now. Be careful. These alternative medicine types can be very litigious. Don't harass her without cause. I never harass anyone. No. You just watch and wait until they hang themselves. She stood, smoothing her skirt. I have to check on the kitchen. The new chef is still finding his feet. He followed her out, noting how her heels clicked on the marble floor, how she nodded graciously to guests, how she belonged here in a way he never would. At the door, she turned. Hamish, the healer. What's bothering you about her? He thought about it. She sees too much. Like you do? Different. I see what people do. She sees what they want, what they fear. That's more dangerous. Priscilla's blue eyes met his. For a moment, the mask slipped. Then we're all in trouble, she said softly. Before he could respond, she was gone, heels clicking down the corridor. Chapter 2. Bad medicine. Saturday evening brought the kind of Highland weather that couldn't make up its mind. Sun broke through clouds only to be chased away by quick squalls of rain, and the wind carried the smell of winter from the mountains. Hamish stood at the back of the village hall, watching the band set up. The Harvest Keeley was Lochdoob's biggest event of the autumn, and it seemed the entire village had turned out. Trestle tables groaned under the weight of Mrs. Wellington's sandwiches, sausage rolls, and enough home baking to feed an army. The bar was doing steady business. Everyone's here, he thought, scanning the crowd, even the ones who hate each other. Morag Sinclair had arrived early, wearing a dress of deep green velvet that made her look like she'd stepped out of another century. She moved through the crowd with confidence, stopping to talk to villagers who would have crossed the street to avoid her a week ago. Hamish noticed money, changing hands, discreet envelopes tucked into her embroidered bag. She's doing business at the Caelid. Mrs. Wellington appeared at his elbow, quivering with indignation. The nerve of the woman! Oh, it's not illegal to talk to people, Mrs. Wellington. She's selling her snake oil. Look, there's poor Mrs. Daviot giving her money right now. Indeed, Mrs. Daviot was pressing something into Morag's hands. The cancer had taken its toll. She was thin as paper, her dress hanging loose on her frame, but her eyes were bright with something Hamish recognized. Hope. Dr. Brodie stood near the bar, watching the exchange with a face like thunder. His wife Angela tried to distract him, but he shook her off and strode across the hall. Here comes trouble, Hamish thought, moving closer. Mrs. Daviot, Dr. Brodie's voice cut through the music. A word, please. Doctor, Mrs. Daviot's chin lifted. I'm having a conversation. With a charlatan who's taking your money? The music stopped. The entire hall turned to watch. Morag Sinclair smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Dr. Brodie, how nice to finally meet you properly. I've heard so much about you from your former patients. My patients? Former patients. The ones you couldn't help. The ones you gave up on. The ones you told to get their affairs in order. She turned to the crowd. How many of you has the good doctor written off? How many times has modern medicine failed you? A murmur ran through the hall. Hamish saw heads nodding. That's enough, Dr. Brodie snapped. You're peddling false hope to desperate people. I'm offering alternatives, something you refuse to even consider. Morag's voice rose. Tell me, doctor, what's your cure rate for cancer? For chronic fatigue? For the diseases that don't show up on your tests, but still destroy lives? Medicine is science. Medicine is arrogance. She was in full flow now. You think your 7 years of university makes you God? I have knowledge passed down through 20 generations of Highland healers. My grandmother could cure what your hospitals can't even diagnose. Your grandmother was probably a witch doctor. The word witch hung in the air like a curse. Morag went very still. Careful, doctor. That's slander. Truth isn't slander. Then let me tell you some truths. Her voice dropped. But in the silent hall, everyone heard. Mrs. Patterson's arthritis that you said she'd have to live with? Gone after 3 weeks of my treatment. Tommy Morrison's migraines that your pills couldn't touch? I cured them with feverfew and proper diet. And what about young Sign MacDonald? Dr. Brodie went pale. That's patient confidentiality. She's my patient now. Came to me after you told her the rash was psychosomatic. Stress, you said. It was a simple allergic reaction to the new washing powder her mother started using. One conversation, doctor. That's all it took. The crowd was mesmerized. This was better than television. You're a fraud, Dr. Brodie said. But his voice had lost its power. No, doctor. I'm competition. And that terrifies you. She turned to address the hall. I'm not saying don't see doctors. Modern medicine has its place. But so does traditional healing. Why not use both? Why not have choices? Because people will die, Dr. Brodie exploded. Mrs. Daviot needs chemotherapy, not herbs and crystals. All eyes turned to Mrs. Daviot. She stood straighter, 2 spots of colour on her cheeks. I've had chemotherapy, doctor. 3 rounds. It nearly killed me, and the cancer came back anyway. You told me yourself there was nothing more you could do. I said conventional treatment. You said I should get my affairs in order. Her voice was steady. Well, I've decided my affairs include trying to live. If Morag can help me, or even just make me feel better while I'm dying, what harm does it do? The harm, Dr. Brodie said coldly, is that she's taking your money for nothing. Like you did? Mrs. Daviot's voice cracked. How much did I pay for treatment that didn't work? The doctor had no answer for that. Archie McLean stepped forward. Fisherman's hands clenched. My Mary went to a healer. Said the doctors were wrong. 6 months later, she was dead. I'm sorry for your loss, Morag said gently. But did the doctors save her? They might have if she'd stayed with proper treatment. Might have. Morag's voice was sad. That's all any of us can offer. Might have. Maybe, perhaps. At least I'm honest about it. Willie Lamont, who ran the local restaurant, spoke up. She helped my back. I could barely stand before. Now I'm working full shifts. Placebo effect, Dr. de Brodie muttered. I don't care what effect it is if it works. The argument erupted into general chaos, villagers taking sides, voices rising. The band tried to start playing again, but nobody was dancing. Hamish waded in. Right, that's enough. His voice carried over the noise. This is meant to be a celebration, not a debate. Dr. Miss Sinclair, perhaps you could continue this elsewhere. Gladly, Dr. Brodie said. He grabbed Angela's arm. We're leaving. But, Angela protested. Now! They left. the doctor's back rigid with fury. Morag watched them go, then turned to Hamish. "Thank you, Constable." "Don't thank me yet. You've made an enemy there. I've made several, I imagine." She didn't seem concerned. "Enemies mean you're doing something important. Or something wrong." She smiled that knowing smile. "You're still conflicted about me. Good. Certainty is dangerous in a policeman." Her gaze shifted over his shoulder. "Your lady is here." Hamish turned. Priscilla had arrived, wearing a midnight blue dress that made every other woman in the hall look overdressed or underdressed by comparison. She was with her father, Colonel Halberton Smythe, and a man Hamish didn't recognise. Tall, dark-haired, expensive suit. London, by the look of him. "No, not tonight." "Interesting," Morag murmured. "The plot thickens." "What?" "Nothing. Enjoy your evening, Constable." She drifted away, leaving Hamish standing alone as Priscilla's party approached. "Macbeth," the colonel barked. "Keeping order, I hope?" "Yes, sir." "Good man. This is Peter Daventry, down from London. Banking fellow." "Peter, this is our local constable." Daventry offered a manicured hand. His handshake was firm but somehow condescending. "Constable, charming village you have here." "Aye." Priscilla hadn't looked at him once. She was studying the hall decorations with intense concentration. "Priscilla's been showing me around," Daventry continued. "Wonderful guide, really knows the area. She grew up here," Hamish said unnecessarily. "Yes, she mentioned that, among other things." Daventry's smile had an edge. "Shall we get drinks, Priscilla?" "Of course." They moved toward the bar. The colonel lingered. "Good match, that," he said, watching them. "Daventry's got connections. Money. Could really help the hotel, I'm sure. Better than, well, some matches are more suitable than others." The colonel's meaning was clear. "Evening, Macbeth." Hamish stood rooted to the spot, watching Priscilla laugh at something Daventry said. She looked happy, relaxed, the way she never looked with him. Let it go. You always knew this would happen. The band struck up a reel. Couples took to the floor. Hamish retreated to his corner, doing his job, watching for trouble. But his eyes kept finding Priscilla and Daventry. They danced well together, looked right together. Near midnight, he stepped outside for air. The rain had stopped, leaving everything gleaming wet under the moon. He was thinking about going home when he heard voices from the car park. "Told you not to threaten me." Morag's voice, sharp with anger. "I'm not threatening. I'm warning." A man's voice, one Hamish couldn't place. "Leave the past buried, or what? Just leave it. For everyone's sake." Footsteps crunched on gravel. Hamish pressed back into the shadows. A figure hurried past, too dark to identify. A car door slammed. Engine started. Morag stood alone in the car park, silhouetted against the hall's lit windows. She was very still, head tilted as if listening. Then she turned and looked directly at where Hamish stood. "Constable, enjoying the fresh air." He stepped out. "Aye. You?" "Someone needed to remind me of something. Old debts, old secrets. The Highlands are full of them, aren't they?" "Who was that?" "Nobody important." She pulled her shawl tighter. "Tell me, Constable, do you believe the past stays buried?" "In my experience, it usually finds a way to surface." "Yes." Her voice was soft. "That's what I'm afraid of." She went back inside. Hamish remained in the darkness, unease prickling his spine. The Tailith wound down near 1 o'clock. Hamish helped stack chairs, mainly to avoid watching Daventry help Priscilla with her coat. When he finally emerged, most cars had gone. The village was settling back into sleep, but there was a light in Morag's cottage. "Go home," he told himself. "Whatever she's doing is none of your business." He was halfway to the police station when he heard it, a cry, sharp and cut short. Hamish ran. The cottage door stood open. He burst in. "Miss Sinclair." The front room was empty, but the air smelled wrong. Bitter almonds and something else, something that made his throat close. He found her in the back room, sprawled beside an overturned table. Her face was twisted, lips blue, eyes staring at nothing. Hamish dropped to his knees, checking for a pulse he knew he wouldn't find. She was still warm, but life had fled. On the floor beside her, a teacup lay broken, dark liquid pooling on the floorboards. He bent close, caught that bitter almond scent again. Cyanide. But that makes no sense. She was a healer. She'd know. Unless someone else prepared the tea. He reached for his radio, then stopped. The cottage was too quiet, too still. Whoever did this might still be. A floorboard creaked behind him. Hamish spun, but too late. Something crashed into his skull, and darkness swallowed him whole. Chapter 3. Bitter Herbs. Hamish woke to pain and voices. His head felt like someone was using it as an anvil. He tried to open his eyes, manage slits. Completely incompetent. Lets himself get knocked out at a crime scene. Blair's voice at maximum volume. Sir, he needs medical attention. That was Jimmy Anderson, Blair's long-suffering sergeant. He needs a boot up his backside. Macbeth! Wake up, you useless tutor. Hamish groaned and forced his eyes fully open. He was still in Morag's cottage, now swarming with police. Someone had propped him against the wall. Dr. Brodie knelt beside him, shining a penlight in his eyes. Concussion, the doctor said. He needs to go to hospital. He needs to tell me what happened. Blair loomed over them, red face sweating despite the cold morning. His cheap suit was already rumpled, though it wasn't yet 7 o'clock. I heard a cry, Hamish managed. Found her dead. Someone hit me from behind. Brilliant detective work. Did you see who? No, sir. Blair snorted. Typical. The one time something actually happens in this godforsaken place, and you're unconscious for it. He turned to Anderson. What have we got? Victim is Morag Sinclair, age 45. Found dead approximately 1 a.m. Apparent poisoning. There's a broken teacup. Smells like bitter almonds. Cyanide? Possibly. We'll need toxicology to confirm. Blair surveyed the scene with satisfaction. Open and shut. Suicide. These new age types are all unstable. Hamish struggled to sit up straighter. It wasn't suicide. Oh? And how would you know? You were unconscious. Someone hit me. Suicides don't usually assault police officers after they're dead. Maybe you surprised the person who found her. They panicked. Ran. Then why not raise the alarm? Why hit me? Because people are idiots, Macbeth. Haven't you learned that yet? Blair dismissed him with a wave. Right, Anderson. Bag everything. We'll process it in Strathbane. This village probably doesn't even have evidence bags. Hamish watched them work, his vision still swimming. The scene was wrong, but his scrambled brains couldn't quite grasp why. Something about the teacup. She wouldn't have drunk it, he said suddenly. Blair turned. What? The tea. She was an herbalist. She'd have recognized the smell of cyanide immediately. Bitter almonds. She'd never have drunk it. Maybe she wanted to die. Took it deliberately. Then why cry out? Why the struggle? Hamish pointed to the overturned table. Someone forced her. Forced a grown woman to drink poison? Don't be daft. But Anderson was nodding slowly. There are marks on her throat. Bruising, like someone held her. Blair scowled. Fine, murder then. Still taking it to Strathbane. Sir, Hamish said carefully, the killer is likely local. Someone who knew her routines, knew she'd be alone after the Sealith. Which is why we're taking it to Strathbane, away from local bias and incompetence. Blair's piggy eyes gleamed. This is a big case, Macbeth. Too big for a village copper who can't even avoid getting coshed. Let him have it, Hamish thought. You can work better without him breathing down your neck. Yes, sir. You're right, sir. Blair looked suspicious at the easy agreement but couldn't find fault with it. Anderson, get statements from everyone at that party last night. I want to know who left when, who talked to the victim, everything. What should I do, sir? Hamish asked, putting on his best humble voice. You? Go home. Rest that thick head of yours. Try not to get knocked out again. Yes, sir. Dr. Brodie helped him to his feet. I'll drive you home. I can walk. Not with that concussion. Angela would never forgive me if I let you stagger off and collapse in a ditch. They left the cottage, passing the forensics team arriving from Strathbane. The morning was grey and drizzling, matching the village mood. Already, people were gathering in knots, whispering. In the doctor's car, Hamish said, "You didn't like her." "No," Brodie admitted. "But I didn't kill her. I wasn't suggesting. Weren't you? I'm the obvious suspect. We argued publicly. I have access to poisons." The doctor's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Blair will probably arrest me by lunch. Where did you go after you left the Sealith?" "Home. Angela can confirm it. We were both upset. Had a drink. Went to bed about midnight." "Did you hear anything? Your house isn't far from her cottage." "Nothing. But we had the windows closed against the rain." They pulled up at the police station. Hamish climbed out carefully, his head spinning. "Hamish," Dr. Brodie said, "I didn't like her, but she didn't deserve this. Find who did it. Blair's in charge now." "Blair's an idiot. You know this village. You know the people." The doctor paused. "She said something at the Sheelith about old secrets. I think she knew things. Dangerous things." "What kind of things?" "I don't know. But she'd been asking questions around the village. About people's medical histories, their families. Mrs. Patterson mentioned it yesterday. Said the healer knew things about her father's death that nobody should know." After the doctor left, Hamish fed his animals, then sat gingerly in his chair. His head throbbed, but his mind was working now. She knew secrets. Someone killed her to keep her quiet. But whose secrets? A knock interrupted his thoughts. Priscilla stood in the doorway, pale with worry. "Hamish, I heard you were hurt." "Just a bump." She came in without invitation, studying his face. "You look terrible. There's blood on your collar." "It's nothing. It's not nothing." Her cool facade cracked slightly. "You could have been killed, but I wasn't." She sat on the arm of the sofa, an informal gesture unusual for her. "Do you know who did it?" "Not yet. Where did you go after the Caliph?" "Back to the hotel with Daddy and Peter." She paused. "Peter wanted to go for a walk, actually. Said he needed air after all the dancing. He was gone about an hour." Hamish filed that away. "Did he say where he walked?" "Along the waterfront, I think. Why? You can't suspect Peter. He didn't even know her. I'm not suspecting anyone yet." "Liar. You're always suspecting everyone." But she said it gently. "Who had reason to kill her?" "According to Blair, she killed herself." "That's ridiculous. I spoke to her last night. She was excited about something. Said she'd finally found what she came to Lochdoub for." Hamish sat up straighter, ignoring the pain. "What did she mean?" "I don't know. She was quite mysterious about it." Priscilla frowned, remembering. "Actually, she said something odd. Said the past always surfaces, and someone was about to learn that the hard way." Who was she talking to when she said this? She wasn't. She was watching someone across the room, but I couldn't see who. Too many people. The door burst open. Blair stood there, face thunderous. "Macbeth, I told you to rest." "I am resting, sir." "With visitors?" His eyes narrowed at Priscilla. "Taking statements without authorization?" "I was checking on him," Priscilla said coolly. "He was injured." "He can check himself. This is a murder investigation, not a social call." Blair pointed at the door. "Out!" Priscilla stood with dignity. "I hope you find who did this, Chief Inspector. Morag didn't deserve to die." After she left, Blair rounded on Hamish. "Stay away from this case, Macbeth. That's an order." "Yes, sir. I mean it. One step out of line and I'll have you transferred to the Outer Hebrides." "Understood, sir." Blair stomped out. Hamish waited 5 minutes, then reached for his notebook. He might be officially off the case, but that didn't mean he couldn't think. He wrote, "Who benefits from her death?" Dr. Brodie Removes competition, Mrs. Daviett. If she found out herbs wouldn't work. Someone with old secrets. But who? The phone rang. It was Willie Lamont from the restaurant. Hamish? Is it true? Is she dead? Aye, Willie. Christ. She was just in yesterday, picking up supplies I'd ordered for her. Special herbs from my supplier in Inverness. What kind of herbs? Exotic stuff. Foxglove, nightshade, hemlock. Said they were for medicines but needed careful handling. I made her sign a waiver. Hamish gripped the phone tighter. Willie, did she take them all? That's the thing. She said she was expecting someone to collect a package. Wouldn't say who. Said they'd know what to ask for. Did anyone collect it? Not yet. The box is still here. Lock it up. Don't give it to anyone except the police. After hanging up, Hamish thought furiously. Foxglove contains digitalis. Nightshade and hemlock are deadly. Why would someone order poisons through her, unless they wanted her to take the blame for something? Another knock. This time it was the Curry sisters, carrying a covered dish. We brought soup, Nessie said. Soup, Jessie echoed. For your head. Your poor head. Hamish accepted the dish gratefully. The sisters settled in like roosting hens, clearly bursting with information. She wasn't well liked, Nessie began. Not liked at all, Jessie confirmed. Been asking questions. Too many questions. About old scandals. Very old scandals. Hamish leaned forward, ignoring his headache. What scandals? The sisters exchanged glances. The Fleming girl, Nessie whispered. Poor Annie Fleming's daughter, Jessie added. 20 years ago. 20 years exactly. What about her? Hamish asked. She went away, Nessie said carefully. To university, they said. But she came back different. Never married. Never even courted. And Annie's been protective ever since. Very protective. Hamish knew Annie Fleming, the postmistress. Respectable, church-going, wouldn't say boo to a goose. Her daughter Jane worked at the bank in Strathbane, came home weekends. Quiet girl. Kept to herself. Why was Morag interested in Jane Fleming? The sisters looked uncomfortable. There were rumours, Nessie said. Just rumours, Jessie emphasised. That Jane had been in trouble. That kind of trouble. And went away to deal with it. But that's just gossip. Old gossip. Surely not worth killing over. Surely not. But Hamish wondered. In a small Highland village, reputation was everything. If Morag had proof of an illegal abortion 20 years ago, if she'd been threatening to expose it. Annie Fleming had been at the Xalid. He'd seen her leaving early, about 11:30. Plenty of time to go home, then visit Morag's cottage. Chapter 4. Old Remedies. Despite Blair's orders, Hamish couldn't stay away from the investigation. By afternoon, his headache had subsided to a dull throb, and he decided a walk for fresh air was exactly what the doctor would order. If that walk happened to take him past certain houses, well, that was coincidence. The Curry sisters' shop was his first stop. They were behind the counter, heads together, whispering furiously. They broke apart when he entered. Hamish, you should be resting, Nessie scolded. Resting, Jessie echoed, though her eyes gleamed with curiosity. I am resting. Resting my legs by walking. He leaned against the counter. Tell me more about Morag's questions. The sisters exchanged glances. She came in Tuesday, Nessie said. Tuesday afternoon. Bought tea and biscuits. And asked questions. About the old families. The established families. She had a notebook, Nessie whispered. Full of names, Jessie added. She wanted to know about scandals. Old scandals. Deaths that seemed odd. Marriages that happened quickly. Girls who went away. And never came back the same. Hamish thought about this. Did she say why? Said she was writing a book, Nessie sniffed. A book about Highland healing traditions. But that wouldn't need scandal. Not scandal at all. Unless, Nessie said slowly. She was really writing about how villagers used healers. To hide problems, Jessie finished. What kind of problems? Hamish asked. The sisters looked around, though the shop was empty. Unwanted babies, Nessie whispered. Mercy killings, Jessie added. Hiding madness. Covering up disease. Things families didn't want known. Things that would ruin reputations. So she wasn't just a healer, Hamish thought. She was a researcher, digging up what the village wanted buried. Did she mention any specific names, besides the Flemings? The McLeans, Nessie said. Poor Archie McLean. His wife's death. So sudden. The Daviot family. Old Mr. Daviot, his first wife, died young, and the Halbert and Smythes, Nessie said carefully. Hamish's head snapped up. What about them? The Colonel's sister, Margaret, went to Switzerland in 1975, never came back. They said it was tuberculosis, but she looked healthy before she left. Very healthy. Blooming, you might say. Hamish's mind raced. The Colonel's sister, pregnant and unmarried in 1975? That would have been a massive scandal. The family would have done anything to hide it. Did Morag speak to the Colonel? She tried, Nessie said. He refused to see her. Quite rudely. Very rudely. Threatened to have her arrested for trespassing. She laughed at him. Said he couldn't hide from the truth forever. The shop bell jangled. Mrs. Daviot entered, looking frailer than ever. Her eyes were red from crying. Mrs. Daviot, Hamish said gently. I'm sorry about Morag. She was helping me, Mrs. Daviot said, voice breaking. She was the only one who gave me hope. What kind of help? Hamish asked. Herbs for the pain, teas to help me sleep. But more than that, she listened. She didn't look at me like I was already dead. Did she ever mention anyone threatening her? Mrs. Daviot hesitated. She said someone was trying to stop her work. Someone powerful. Did she say who? No. But she wasn't frightened. Said the truth would protect her. Fresh tears spilled. She was wrong, wasn't she? After Mrs. Daviot left with her shopping, Hamish walked to Dr. Brodie's surgery. He found the doctor in his office, staring at patient files. Hamish, shouldn't you be resting? I'm fine. Tell me about the poison that killed her. Brodie sighed. Blair's forensics confirm it was cyanide. Concentrated dose in the tea. Could she have had cyanide in her supplies? Possibly. Some traditional medicines use minute amounts of dangerous substances, but she'd have known how to handle them safely. Someone else knew too, then. Someone who could prepare it without killing themselves. The doctor looked uncomfortable. Anyone with basic chemistry knowledge could extract cyanide. Bitter almonds, apple seeds, even cherry pits contain it. But they'd need to know how. Or have access to someone who did. Brodie paused. Hamish, half the village has been reading up on poisons since she arrived. She made people curious about herbalism. The library's been lending out books on traditional medicines. Who borrowed them? You'd have to ask Mrs. Hendry. Angela Brodie appeared in the doorway with a tea tray. Hamish, how's your head? Better, thanks. I've brought you both tea. You look like you need it. She poured, hands steady. Hamish noticed she'd been crying. Her eyes were puffy despite fresh makeup. You liked Morag, he observed. She was interesting, different. She made me think about things differently. Angela sat down. Did you know she trained as a proper nurse before turning to traditional healing? No. She told me yesterday. Said she'd seen too much suffering that modern medicine couldn't help. Wanted to find other ways. Yesterday? When did you speak to her? She came here, actually. About 4 o'clock. Wanted to apologize to my husband for the scene at the Salad. Brodie looked surprised. She never apologized to me. She was waiting for you. But then got a phone call and had to leave suddenly. Said someone needed to see her urgently. Who? Hamish asked. She didn't say, but she looked excited. Said something about finally having proof. Proof of what? I don't know. She rushed off before I could ask. Hamish left the surgery and walked slowly toward the post office. Annie Fleming was behind the counter, sorting mail with mechanical precision. She looked up when he entered, face carefully neutral. Hamish, terrible business about that woman. Where were you after the tea leaf, Annie? Her hand stilled. Home. Where else would I be? Jane was with you? Of course. We left together at 11:30. Anyone see you arrive home? Colour rose in her cheeks. Are you accusing me of something? Just routine questions. Blair wants everyone's movements. Well, you can tell Blair that Jane and I were home by 11:45. Mrs. McPherson next door saw us. She was putting her cat out. That could be checked. Mrs. McPherson was reliable. Annie, Hamish said carefully, did Morag ever speak to you about old times? Annie's face went white, then red. That woman was a gossip and a troublemaker. Whatever she said about anyone, it was lies. What did she say about you? Nothing, because there's nothing to say. Annie's voice rose. My family has nothing to hide. The post office door opened. Jane Fleming entered, stopping short when she saw Hamish. Mum, is everything all right? Jane was 38 but looked older. Plain, tired, permanent worry lines. The kind of woman life had disappointed early and often. Fine, dear. The constable was just leaving. Actually, Hamish said, I'd like a word with Jane, too. I don't think, Annie began. It's all right, Mum. Jane's voice was quiet. What do you want to know? Did you know Morag Sinclair? I saw her around. Never spoke to her. Never? Jane hesitated. She came to the bank once, asked about old records, property transfers from 20 years ago. What kind of transfers? The old Sinclair Croft, up on the hill. She said it had belonged to her grandmother, was sold without proper documentation. Hamish frowned. The Sinclair Croft had been empty for decades, slowly falling to ruin. Who owns it now? Colonel Halberton Smythe. Bought it in 1976 for almost nothing. The owner needed money quickly. Why did she need money? Hamish asked, though he thought he knew. Jane looked at her mother, then back at Hamish. Medical expenses, the record said. For treatment in Switzerland. Switzerland. Where the Colonel's sister went. Where Jane Fleming might have gone. Thank you, Hamish said. That's very helpful. Outside, he stood thinking. The Sinclair Croft, the Colonel's sister, Jane Fleming's university trip, all connected to Switzerland, all around the same time, and Morag had been investigating it. His radio crackled. Macbeth! Where the hell are you? Blair's voice. In the village, sir. I told you to stay out of this. I was just getting shopping, sir. Well, stop shopping and get to the station. I've made an arrest. Hamish's stomach dropped. Who? Dr. Brodie. Found a bottle of cyanide in his surgery, hidden behind other medicines. Idiot thought he could hide it from us. Sir, that doesn't mean... It means I've solved the case, Macbeth. While you were lying around, I was doing real police work. The radio went dead. Hamish stood in the empty street, mind racing. Too easy. Too convenient. Brodie's not stupid enough to hide evidence in his own surgery. Someone was framing the doctor. Someone who knew Blair would jump at the obvious solution. Someone who was still out there, thinking they'd gotten away with murder. Chapter 5. False Cures. The police station was chaos when Hamish arrived. Blair had commandeered the small office, spreading files across every surface. Anderson looked exhausted, and it was only 5 in the afternoon. Macbeth, Blair boomed. Come to see how real police work is done. Is Dr. Brodie still here? In the cell. His lawyer's driving up from Inverness. Blair looked supremely satisfied. Open and shut case. He had motive, means, and opportunity. What about his alibi? His wife? Hardly reliable? She'd say anything to protect him. Sir, Anderson interrupted. The cyanide bottle in the surgery. No fingerprints on it. So? He wore gloves. Doctors always have gloves. But why put it back in his own surgery? Hamish asked. Why not throw it in the lock? Because criminals are stupid, Macbeth. That's why we catch them. Hamish caught Anderson's eye. The sergeant looked skeptical, but wouldn't contradict Blair openly. Can I speak to Dr. Brodie? Hamish asked. No, he's my prisoner, my case. Actually, a cool voice said from the doorway, he's my client, and I decide who he speaks to. A woman stood there, sharp suit, sharper expression. The lawyer from Inverness. And you are? Blair demanded. Sarah Morrison, Dr. Brodie's legal counsel. I want to see my client, now. While Blair blustered, Hamish slipped outside. He needed to think without Blair's noise. Mrs. Daviot was walking slowly along the waterfront, hunched against the wind. Hamish caught up with her. How are you feeling? She managed a wan smile. Like I'm dying, which I am. I'm sorry. Don't be. We all die. Some just know when. She pulled her coat tighter. At least Morag made me feel like I was fighting. What exactly was she treating you with? Herbs? Mistletoe extract, she said. Some kind of mushroom powder and something else. She was going to start me on something new this week. Did she say what? No. Said it was experimental. Based on something her grandmother used. Mrs. Daviot's eyes filled with tears. I'll never know if it would have worked. Where did you go after the Tailith? Home with my husband. He was drunk. I had to practically carry him. Mrs. Wellington saw us. She was walking that dreadful poodle of hers. That could be verified. Hamish made a mental note. Mrs. Daviot, did Morag ever mention anyone specific she was investigating? She asked about my late father-in-law once. Old Mr. Daviot. His first wife died young, before my husband was born. Morag seemed very interested in that. Why? I don't know. It was 40 years ago. But she said something odd. Said sometimes healers were asked to be killers. To ease suffering that couldn't be eased any other way. Mercy killing, Hamish thought. Another secret someone might kill to protect. He left Mrs. Daviot and walked to Tommel Castle. He needed to speak to the colonel, but that required finesse. And possibly Priscilla's help. He found her in the hotel garden, cutting roses for the dining room. The late afternoon light caught her hair, turning it to gold. She looked up as he approached, and for a moment her expression was unguarded, worried, warm. Then Peter Daventry appeared from behind the greenhouse. Constable, investigating among the roses? Just following up on last night. Dreadful business. Though I understand you've arrested someone, Blair has. Not the same thing. Daventry's eyebrows rose. You disagree with your superior? I think the investigation isn't over. How thrilling. Like something from Agatha Christie. Daventry took the basket from Priscilla. Shall I carry these in for you? Actually, Peter, I need to speak with the constable. Alone. Daventry's smile tightened. Of course. I'll see you at dinner. After he left, Priscilla said, You think Blair's wrong? I know he is. Priscilla, I need to speak to your father about his sister Margaret. She went very still. Why? Morag was investigating something that happened in 1975. Your aunt went to Switzerland and never came back. She had tuberculosis. Did she? Priscilla turned away, but not before he saw pain flash across her face. I don't know. Father won't discuss it. Neither will Mother. But you've wondered. Of course I've wondered. There are no pictures of her after 1974. No letters. It's like she just vanished. The Sinclair Croft was sold cheap in 1976. Money for medical expenses in Switzerland. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You think Margaret... And the money was for... I don't know. But Morag was investigating it. Priscilla stood silent for a moment, then lifted her chin. Come on. Father's in his study. Colonel Halberton Smythe was not pleased to see Hamish. He was even less pleased when Hamish mentioned Margaret. My sister is none of your business. She might be connected to Morag's murder. Ridiculous. Margaret died of tuberculosis 45 years ago. In Switzerland. Yes. The same time Jane Fleming was in Switzerland. And the Sinclair Croft was sold to pay for someone's medical expenses there. The Colonel's face went purple. How dare you? Father. Priscilla's voice was quiet but firm. If you know something, you need to tell him. There's nothing to tell. Then why won't you ever talk about her? Why are there no photos? No grave to visit? The Colonel crumpled suddenly, all his military bearing gone. He sank into his chair. She was pregnant, he said quietly. Unmarried. The father was married, wouldn't leave his wife. It would have destroyed the family name. So you sent her to Switzerland? For a discreet solution. It was supposed to be simple, but something went wrong. Infection. She died 3 days later. Priscilla had gone white. You never told us she died because of an illegal abortion? No. We said tuberculosis. Easier. Cleaner. Who else knew? Hamish asked gently. The family who arranged it. They had a daughter in the same situation. The Flemings? The Colonel nodded. Their girl survived. Margaret didn't. And Morag found out? She came here last week. Said she had Margaret's medical records from the Swiss clinic. God knows how. Wanted to interview me about traditional Highland methods of dealing with unwanted pregnancies. For her book. What did you tell her? To go to hell. Where were you after the Tailith? Here. With my wife and Daventry. You can't seriously think I have to ask everyone. The Colonel stood, dignity reasserting itself. I didn't kill her, Macbeth. Yes, I wanted the past buried. But I'm not a murderer. Hamish believed him. The Colonel was many things. Proud, stubborn, classist, but not a killer. Outside the study, Priscilla walked him to the door in silence. Your poor aunt, she finally said. I. All these secrets, all these lies. Generation after generation, covering things up. It's the Highland way sometimes. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Is that why we never... She stopped. Priscilla, no, forget I said anything. The walls were back up. Find who killed her, Hamish. Find the truth. It was nearly 7 when Hamish reached the police station. Blair was gone, probably to the pub to celebrate his success. Anderson was still there, looking miserable. He's wrong, isn't he? Anderson said, without preamble. Aye. The cyanide was planted. Too convenient. What else have you found? Anderson pulled out an evidence bag. This was in Morag's cottage, hidden under loose floorboards. It was a leather journal, water-stained and old. Hamish opened it carefully. The writing was faded but legible. It's a healer's journal, Anderson said. From the 1960s and 70s, lists of patients, treatments, and look at this page. November 15th, 1975. 2 girls requiring travel assistance, MH and JF. Arrangements made with Swiss clinic. Payment received from both families. MH, Margaret Halbert and Smythe. JF, Jane Fleming. There's more, Anderson said. Look at the last entry from just last month. September 30th. Granddaughter of MS contacted me. Wants her grandmother's journal returned. Have agreed to meet in Lochdoub. Time to right old wrongs. MS, Morag Sinclair, Hamish guessed. Must be. The original Morag Sinclair. The healer from the 1970s. So our victim was the granddaughter, come to reclaim family property and investigate family history. And someone killed her for it. Hamish studied the journal. Annie Fleming would protect Jane at any cost. If Morag threatened to expose the abortion, Mrs. Fleming was seen going home. Her neighbour confirmed it. But did she stay home? Anderson frowned. You think she went back out? Before Hamish could answer, the door burst open. Willie Lamont ran in, face pale. Hamish, come quick. There's been another poisoning. Chapter 6. The Root of Evil. Mrs. Daviott lay in her bedroom, barely breathing. Her husband knelt beside the bed, holding her hand. Dr. Brodie's replacement, a young doctor from Strathbane, was checking her pulse. Digitalis poisoning, he said. Massive overdose. She's lucky to be alive. What happened? Hamish asked Mr. Daviett. She took her evening medicine. The herbs that healer gave her. 20 minutes later, she collapsed. Where are the herbs? Kitchen table. Hamish bagged the packet carefully. It smelled wrong, not like the gentle herbs Morag had been prescribing. This was foxglove. Pure, concentrated, deadly. This isn't what Morag gave her, he said. How do you know? The young doctor asked. Because Morag was trying to help her, not kill her. He radioed Blair, who arrived 20 minutes later, furious at being pulled from the pub. Another poisoning? While Brodie's in custody? Blair's face went redder. That's impossible. It's very possible if Brodie's innocent, Hamish said. Someone switched Mrs. Daviett's medicine, Anderson added. Replaced healing herbs with foxglove. When? Today, probably. After Morag's death, but before Mrs. Daviett took them. Blair grabbed the packet. This proves nothing. Brodie could have done this before we arrested him. Sir, Hamish said patiently, Mrs. Daviett took her morning dose and was fine. Someone switched them this afternoon. Then it's a copycat. Anderson and Hamish exchanged glances. Or, Anderson said carefully, we have the wrong person. Nonsense. The evidence was planted, Hamish finished. Sir, we need to look at this differently. Both victims were connected to Morag's research into old secrets. What secrets? Hamish explained about the journal, the Swiss clinic, the covered-up abortions. Blair listened, then shrugged. So what? That was 40 years ago. But the families involved are still here, still protecting their reputations. You think someone killed over a 40-year-old abortion? I think someone killed to protect their daughter, Blair snorted. Arrest Annie Fleming then. See how that goes without evidence. But Hamish was thinking. Something was wrong with his theory. Annie had been home, verified. Jane was with her, also verified. So who? His radio crackled. Hamish? It was Willie Lamont. That package Morag ordered? Someone just tried to collect it. Who? I didn't let them have it, like you said. But Hamish... You're not going to believe who it was. Who, Willie? Peter Daventry, that London banker fellow. Daventry? That made no sense. Unless... Willie, keep the package locked up. I'm coming over. He ran to the restaurant, mind racing. Daventry had no connection to the village secrets. He'd only arrived this week, but he'd gone for a walk after the Teelid. Been gone an hour. Long enough to reach Morag's cottage. Willie met him at the door. He said Priscilla sent him. But when I called the hotel, she knew nothing about it. What exactly did he say? That he was collecting something for Miss Halberton Smythe. That it was delicate family business. Family business. The pieces clicked together suddenly. Hamish grabbed his radio. Anderson, meet me at Tommel Castle. Now. He drove fast, skidding on the wet roads. The castle was lit up for dinner service, but Hamish went straight to the family quarters. He found them in the drawing room, the Colonel, his wife, Priscilla, and Daventry. They looked up in surprise as he burst in. Hamish! Priscilla stood. What's wrong? Mr. Daventry, I need to ask you some questions. Daventry smiled smoothly. Of course, Constable. How can I help? Why did you try to collect Morag's package from the restaurant? The smile flickered. I don't know what you mean. Willie Lamont says otherwise. Then he's mistaken. Peter? Priscilla looked confused. What's this about? Nothing, darling. A misunderstanding. But the Colonel was staring at Daventry with growing suspicion. You said you were from London. I am. But you knew about Margaret. You asked about her yesterday. How did you even know I had a sister? Daventry's composure cracked slightly. Priscilla mentioned her. No, Priscilla said slowly. I never mentioned her. We don't talk about Margaret. Anderson appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Hamish kept his eyes on Daventry. You're not really a banker, are you? Of course I am. Check with my firm. Oh, I'm sure you work for a bank. But that's not why you're here. Hamish stepped closer. You're Margaret's son. The room went silent. Daventry's mask finally slipped completely. How did you... The timing. Margaret died in 1975, but not immediately. She had the baby first. The Swiss clinic would have arranged adoption. Wealthy English couple, probably, raised you as their own. Peter? Priscilla's voice was faint. Is this true? Daventry, or whatever his real name was, sank into a chair. My name is Peter. That part's true. And yes, I work for a bank, but I was adopted. Only found out 5 years ago, when my adoptive mother was dying. You're Margaret's son? The colonel said wonderingly. My nephew. Your bastard nephew. The one you tried to erase. We didn't know you existed. No. Because you sent her away to die. Daventry's voice was bitter. Paid for the abortion that killed her. That's not... We thought it was best. Best for who? For the family name? Daventry laughed harshly. Do you know what it's like, finding out your entire life is a lie? That your mother died having you, and her family covered it up? How did you find out about Lockdoob? Hamish asked. I hired investigators. Tracked down the clinic records. Found out about the healer who arranged everything. Morag Sinclair, the original one. And her granddaughter. Contacted me 6 months ago. Said she had her grandmother's journal. Proof of what happened. Offered to sell it to me. So you came here. To get the journal. To meet my mother's family. To... I don't know. Find some peace, maybe. But Morag wouldn't give you the journal, Hamish said. Not until you paid. She kept raising the price. Said others were interested. The Flemings, particularly. So you killed her? No! Daventry shot to his feet. I didn't kill her. Yes. I went to see her after the Sealed. But she was alive when I left. What did you talk about? The journal. She finally agreed to give it to me. Said to come back in the morning. But when I heard she was dead... You tried to collect the poison package. Why? I thought it might have evidence. About my mother. About what really happened. Hamish studied him. The man was clearly emotional, but was he lying? Where exactly did you walk after leaving Morag? Along the waterfront. To the pier and back. I needed to think. Anyone see you? Yes. The fishermen. They were checking their boats. Around midnight. That could be verified. Hamish made a mental note. If you didn't kill her, Anderson said. Who did? Hamish's phone rang. It was the young doctor from Strathbane. Constable, Mrs. Daviett is conscious. She's asking for you. Says it's urgent. Mrs. Daviett was weak but lucid when Hamish arrived. I remembered something, she whispered. About the herbs. Someone came to the house this afternoon. Said Morag had asked them to deliver new medicine. Who? Jane Fleming. Hamish's blood chilled. Jane. Not Annie. Jane. Said her mother was busy at the post office. I didn't think anything of it. Jane's always been helpful. Did you see her switch the packets? No. She said she'd put them in the kitchen while I rested. I found them on the counter later. Jane. Quiet. Overlooked Jane. Who'd had an abortion at 18? Who'd lived with that secret for 20 years? Whose life had been derailed by it? Thank you, Mrs. Daviett. Rest now. He called Anderson. It's Jane Fleming, not Annie. Jane. But she was with her mother. At 11:30. Morag died around 1. Plenty of time for Jane to sneak out after her mother was asleep. Why would Jane? Because Morag wasn't just threatening to expose the abortion. She was threatening Jane's entire life. The life she'd built on lies. Hamish ran to the Fleming house. The lights were on. Through the window, he could see Annie in her chair, knitting. But no Jane. He knocked. Annie answered, looking worried. Hamish, what's wrong? Where's Jane? In her room. She's upset about all this business. I need to see her. She's sleeping. Hamish pushed past her, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Jane's room was empty. The window was open, curtains billowing. Annie stood in the doorway, face white. I don't understand. She killed Morag, Annie, and tried to kill Mrs. Daviot. No! Jane would never. To protect the secret. To protect you. Annie collapsed against the doorframe. Oh, God. Oh, Jane. Where would she go? I don't know. But Hamish did. There was only one place in Lochdoub where desperate people went when there was nowhere else. The old Sinclair Croft. Where it all began. Chapter 7. Final Diagnosis. The path to the Sinclair Croft was treacherous in the dark. Rain had started again, turning the track to mud. Hamish climbed steadily, his torch beam wavering through the mist. Behind him, he could hear Anderson and 2 constables from Strathbane, but he didn't wait. The croft sat on a ledge halfway up the mountain, its stone walls crumbling, roof half collapsed. But there was a light in what remained of the main room. A camping lantern. Jane Fleming sat on a broken chair, very still, hands folded in her lap. She looked up when Hamish entered, unsurprised. I knew you'd work it out, she said quietly. You always were too clever for a village policeman. Jane! Hamish kept his voice gentle. Why don't you come back with me? Your mother's worried. My mother, Jane laughed bitter and short. Everything I've done has been for her. To protect her. And what do I get? Nothing. I'm nobody. Invisible Jane. The spinster bank clerk. That's not true. Isn't it? Do you know what my life could have been, Hamish? I was smart. Top of my class. Had a place at Edinburgh University. But then I got pregnant. She stood, moving to the glassless window. The wind whipped her hair around her face. 17 years old. The father was married, my teacher. Said he loved me. Liar. She laughed again. Mother was horrified. The scandal would destroy her. So off to Switzerland I went. That wasn't your fault. No? Then whose was it? The healer who arranged it? The family who paid for it? Or me, for being young and stupid and believing in love? Jane, they told me it would be simple. Quick. I could come home and pretend it never happened. But it wasn't simple. Her voice cracked. There were complications. Damage. I can never have children, Hamish. Never. The pain in her voice was raw, decades old but still bleeding. So I came home, went to secretarial school instead of university, got a job at the bank, lived with my mother, watched everyone else get married, have families, have lives, while I had nothing but a secret that poisoned everything. And then Morag came. Jane turned back to face him, with her grandmother's journal, with proof of what happened. She said she was writing a book. A book, my shame, published for everyone to read. So you killed her. I asked her not to include me, begged her. She laughed, said the truth needed to be told, that women like me were victims of a patriarchal society. Jane's hands clenched. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor, and I survived by keeping silent. How did you do it? Jane sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. I knew she drank herbal tea before bed, always the same blend. I went to her cottage after Mother was asleep. She was surprised to see me, invited me in, made tea. You put cyanide in it. In the honey. She liked her tea sweet. I'd taken the cyanide from Dr. Brody's surgery earlier in the week. I clean there Tuesday evenings. Nobody knows that. Extra money. You planted the bottle there today. This morning, before anyone was awake, I still had keys. And Mrs. Daviot? Collateral damage. She was getting too close to the truth. Morag had told her things. About the healing. Tradition. About families who'd used it to hide problems. Mrs. Daviot would have worked it out eventually. So you switched her medicine. Foxglove for feverfew. Easy mistake. Could have been accidental. Anderson appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Jane looked at him without interest. "It's over, Jane," Hamish said. "Come back with us." "To what? Prison? My mother's shame? The whole village knowing?" She shook her head. "I've been in prison for 20 years, Hamish. A prison of secrets and silence. Your mother loves you. My mother loves her reputation. I was just the price she paid to keep it." Jane stood again, moving toward the door. "You know what the saddest part is? I actually thought Morag might help at first. Might understand. Woman to woman. Maybe she would have, if you told her the truth." "The truth?" Jane laughed one more time. "The truth is that some secrets are worth killing for. Not for yourself, but for the people you love, even if they don't love you back the same way." She walked out with them, down the mountain path in the rain. No struggle, no tears, just quiet surrender. At the police station, Blair was waiting, furious and blustering. But even he couldn't argue with Jane's confession, given calmly and completely to the tape recorder. Annie Fleming arrived as they were putting Jane in the car to take her to Strathbane. Mother and daughter looked at each other through the window. "I'm sorry, Mum," Jane said. Annie was crying. "Oh, my girl, my poor girl. I did it for you. I never asked you to." "No, but you needed me to." The car drove away. Annie stood in the rain until it disappeared, then walked slowly home, alone. The next morning, Blair held a press conference, taking credit for solving the case through meticulous investigation and superior detection skills. Hamish stood at the back, unmentioned and unnoticed, which was exactly how he wanted it. Dr. Brodie was released with apologies Blair didn't mean. The doctor shook Hamish's hand. "Thank you. I know it was you, not Blair. It was the evidence. It always tells the truth, eventually. Unlike people." Brodie looked tired. "All those secrets, all that pain, for what? For reputation, for family, for love, twisted as it was. Will Jane go to prison? Aye. But with a good lawyer, maybe not for too long. There are mitigating circumstances. The abortion. The whole thing. A life destroyed by one mistake at 17. They stood in silence for a moment. "I didn't like Morag," Brodie said finally, "but she didn't deserve to die. No. She was just trying to reclaim her family's history, to tell stories that had been silenced. Some stories should stay silent. Maybe. But secrets have a way of poisoning everything they touch." After Brodie left, Hamish went to Tommel Castle. He found the family in the morning room. The Colonel, his wife, Priscilla, and Peter Daventry. "We owe you an apology," the Colonel said stiffly. "And you, Peter, we should have told the truth years ago." "It doesn't matter now," Peter said. He looked older, worn down. "I found what I came for. My mother existed. She was real. She was loved, even if things went wrong." "Will you stay?" Priscilla asked. "Get to know us?" "I don't know. Maybe. I need time to think." He left to pack. The Colonel and his wife followed, murmuring about breakfast. Priscilla and Hamish were alone. "Your cousin," Hamish said. "My cousin." She smiled sadly. "All these years, we could have had family we didn't know about." "Secrets have a cost." "Yes." She looked at him directly. "We have our own secrets, don't we?" "Priscilla, I know why we can't be together, Hamish. It's not just the class difference. It's not just my family or your job. It's that we're both too afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of being vulnerable. Of letting someone in completely. Of being hurt." She moved to the window, looking out at the loch. "I hide behind my upbringing and my coolness. You hide behind your laziness and your accent. But we're both just scared." He wanted to deny it, but couldn't. "What do we do about it?" he asked. She turned back to him. For a moment, her mask was completely gone. She was just a woman, beautiful and sad and alone. "I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe that's our tragedy, knowing what's wrong but not being able to fix it. Or maybe," Hamish said slowly, "we just need time, like Peter." "Time." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We've had years, Hamish. Aye. They stood looking at each other across the room. The space between them felt like an ocean. I have to go to London tomorrow, she said. The hotel needs investors. Will Daventry, Peter, help? Maybe. If he decides to be part of the family. When will you be back? 2 weeks, maybe 3, maybe never, Hamish thought, but didn't say. Take care of yourself, Hamish Macbeth, she said softly. Try not to get knocked on the head again. Take care of yourself, Priscilla Halberton Smythe. Try not to freeze that heart completely. Something flickered in her eyes, pain or amusement, he couldn't tell. Too late for that, she said, and left. That evening, Hamish sat in his station with Lugs and Sonsie. The animals knew his mood, pressed close against his legs. Rain battered the windows. The fire crackled in the grate. He thought about Jane Fleming, in a cell in Strathbane. About Annie, alone in her house with her respectability intact, but her daughter gone. About Mrs. Daviot, recovering in hospital, her hope for a cure dead with Morag. About Peter Daventry, trying to piece together an identity from fragments of the past. About Priscilla, driving to London, walls firmly back in place. The phone rang. He let it ring. If it was important, they'd call back. It stopped, then started again. Police, he said wearily. Hamish, it's Angela Brodie. I wanted to thank you. For my husband. No thanks needed. Also, I found something. In Morag's effects, the hospital asked me to go through them, since she had no family here. What did you find? A letter. To you, actually. Should I bring it over? Aye. Angela arrived 10 minutes later, carrying an envelope with his name on it in unfamiliar handwriting. I'll leave you to read it, she said gently. After she left, Hamish opened the letter. Constable Macbeth, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I knew the risks when I came to Lochdoub. The past doesn't like being disturbed. I came here for my grandmother's journal, yes, but also for something more. Understanding. My grandmother helped women in desperate situations. Some called her a criminal. Others called her a savior. I wanted to know which was true. Now I think both were true. She was a woman doing what she could in a world that gave women few choices. The Flemings, the Halberton Smythes, and all the others. They weren't evil. They were desperate. And desperation makes us do terrible things. I should have been more careful. Should have seen that threatening people's secrets would make them dangerous. But I thought the truth was more important than kindness. I was wrong. If I'm dead, look for someone who has more to lose from the past than from murder. Someone whose whole life is built on a lie they can't admit. Be careful, Constable. You see too much. Like I did. It's dangerous to see clearly in a place that depends on blindness. But you're also kind. I could see it in you. Don't let this job take that away. Morag Sinclair P.S. You should tell her how you feel. The blonde woman. Life is shorter than we think. Hamish folded the letter carefully. Morag had seen it coming, had known she was in danger. But she'd stayed anyway, driven by the need to understand, to tell stories, to bring truth to light. And it had killed her. He threw another peat on the fire and sat back. Outside, the rain was turning to sleet. Winter was coming to the Highlands with its long nights and isolation. The phone rang again. This time he answered immediately. Hamish? It was Priscilla. I wanted to say I'm sorry for what I said earlier. Which part? The part about fear. I was talking about myself, not you. You're the bravest man I know. Priscilla, you face the darkness in people every day and still believe in goodness. That's not fear. That's courage. Why are you really calling? A pause. I don't know. I'm sitting in this hotel room in Inverness, and I just needed to hear your voice. Are you all right? No. Yes. I don't know. She laughed, but it was shaky. This case, all those secrets, all that pain, it made me think about us. What about us? That maybe secrets aren't the only things that poison people. Maybe regret does too. When I come back. Yes? When I come back, could we try again? Just talking? Being friends? We were never very good at being friends. No. We were better at it than being lovers, though. That hurt, but it was true. We can try, he said. That's all I wanted to hear. Good night, Hamish. Good night, Priscilla. He sat holding the dead phone for a long moment, then set it down. Lugs whined. Aye, boy, I know. Same old story. He looked around the small station, his chair, his animals, his life. It wasn't much. A village policeman who avoided promotion, solved crimes, and loved a woman he couldn't have. But it was his life. And despite everything, the murders, the secrets, the loneliness, he wouldn't change it. The wind howled around the station. The fire crackled. Sonsie purred. Lugs sighed. And Police Constable Hamish Macbeth sat in his chair, watching the flames, thinking about truth and lies, love and fear, and the weight of secrets in a small Highland village where everyone knew everything and nothing at all. Tomorrow there would be paperwork to avoid, sheep to check, tea to drink. Life would go on in Loch-Dubh, as it always had. But tonight, he sat with his animals and his thoughts, while the storm raged outside and the ghosts of old secrets finally rested in peace. Some truths are worth telling, he thought, and some are worth taking to the grave. The problem was knowing which was which.